Hi guys, welcome to your Unit 2 Lesson 1 Notes on multiplying rational numbers. By the end of the day, you'll be able to multiply rational numbers. All right, before we get started, go ahead and complete this warm-up by yourself. So pause the video and answer each of these 6 problems. Okay, here we go. This is 20. This is negative 27. This is also a negative 27. That was just a coincidence. This D here is 4, E is 6, X, and finally F is 15B plus 30. Now, let's jump into our lesson. By the end of the day, you'll be able to multiply rational numbers. So something to keep in mind is that a rational number, you remember from a previous lesson, is any number that can be written as a fraction or it has a repeating decimal form. So let's look at a bunch of examples. So some fractions, here let's put their fraction form in pink, and then we'll put the repeating decimal form in gray. Yeah, that'll be great. We'll put the gray in great. Okay, moving on. Fraction, one of my go-to fractions is 2/3, so that's exciting. There's also 5/2, or 24, because that can be written as, 24 over 1 makes it a fraction. There you go. Okay, now to put these in repeating decimal form, 2/3 is 0.6666666, and it keeps going. That 6 is what repeats. Here, 5/2 is 2.50, and then it has a 0 that repeats. So that's why we say it's repeating. Some people might say a terminating decimal, which means it just ends. It's 2.5, and that's it, and that's fine. But technically, it does repeat, so that's what we're going to use. And then 24 is 24.000, and then the 0 repeats. So there you go. Rational numbers can be written as a fraction. So today I'm going to just give you a bunch of shortcuts for multiplying them so you can do this in your head. Now, to help you with these shortcuts, I want you to consider the fact that multiplication is just addition a lot of times. For example, if we look at 3 times 0.4, well, that's the same thing as taking 0.4 3 times. So 0.4 plus 0.4 plus 0.4. Is that too many? That's 1, 2, 3. Yeah, there you go. And when you add them all up, so I don't know about you guys, but I like to add this way. I go 0.4, 0.4, 0.4. Okay, well, 4 plus 4 plus 4 is 12. So we do 2, carry the 1, 1. Oh, hey, it's 1.2. Awesome. Which is, it's true. 1.2. Sweet. So that's one way to do your multiplication. Another way to do your multiplication is to straight up multiply it out. So you have 0.4 times 3. And when you multiply decimals, remember that you count, or first of all, you just do the multiplication. In this case, 4 times 3 is 12. Okay, cool. And then you count how many numbers, dearest, you count how many numbers are behind the decimal. And here we have one number behind the decimal. So we're going to move our decimal point over 1. So it gives us 1.2. And there you have it. Here's another shortcut with signs. If you have a positive number times a positive number, that gives you a positive number. Like 3 times 2 is 6. Done. But if you have a positive number times a negative number, that's going to be negative. Make it red. Similarly, if you have a negative number times a positive number, that's going to be negative as well. But now, if you have a negative number times a negative number, it makes it positive again. So leave this chart in your notes. It's a helpful reminder. Okay, so let's find each of these products. First, let's check the sign. So we have only one negative, so that means it is going to be a negative number because we have one little negative sign right here. So it's going to be negative. Now let's do the rest of the multiplication by itself. So we have 2.3 times 4. 3 times 4 is 12, and 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9. So that gives us 9.2. So our final answer is negative 9.2. Here at B, we're going to do the same thing. Let's count our signs. And we have 1 negative, 2 negatives. So 1 negative, 2 negatives. That makes it a positive. So we can say, oh yeah, the answer is positive. Or we can just leave it alone and say, hey, it is. Let's do that. And then we do 5 times 1.3. 5 times 3 is 15, so we'll write the 5, carry the 1. And 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. Can you guys hear the dog snoring in the background? It's very faint. So anyway, so that gives you... Oh guys, I totally multiplied this wrong. Ha ha ha. It's not 3 times 1. Oh, we keep this here though. I totally did that wrong. It's not 3 times 1. It's 1 times 5 plus 1, which is 6. Oh, there you go. So it gives us a positive 6.5. I'll circle it. Okay, now let's put this into practice. Say you've got a skydiver and he's jumping. Oh, he went down. Yipes. Down. Okay. He jumps from the plane at 12,000 feet. And then we're going to use the equation, this thing, 12,000 plus 0.5 times negative 32.1 times 576 to find his height after he free falls for 24 seconds. Our poor skydiver doesn't have any arms. Oh my. There he goes. Alrighty. Also look at this connection. He's jumping from 12,000 feet. That starting point is where we get the 12,000 from. And also he's falling for 24 seconds. That's where 576 is 24 squared. That's where this comes into play. I don't know where I got 12 from. 24 squared. So there you go. These aren't just random numbers. So let's calculate this out. His height is 12,000 plus 0.5 times negative 32.1. That's going to come out to negative 16.05 times 576. Our next step, because we're following PEMDAS, is to do this next multiplication again, which gives us 12,000 plus a negative 9244.8, which comes out to 2,755.2. There you go. Oh, feet. Haha. This is in feet. Now that's great. But what happens if we have fractions? Now, before I tell you the rule for multiplying fractions, I want to show you why it works. So this is what we'll do. We want to multiply 3/7 times 2/5. So first, we're going to draw a rectangle. Look, it's already there. I gave it to you. You're welcome. With 7 rows and 5 columns. And I gave this to you because we have a number over 7. So that's where the 7 rows come from. And then the other denominator of our other fraction is 5. So that's where the 5 columns come from. Now, because we have, I need to make this a little bit wider. Because we have, wrong color, this one. Because we have 3/7, we're going to shade 3/7 of those rows. Oh, it's yellow. I switched them. My bad. Okay, here we go. We will eventually shade 2/5 of the rows blue, but we're going to do yellow first. So we shade 3 We're going to do yellow first. So we shade 3 of the 7 yellows. 1, 2, 3. Now that those are highlighted, let's use 2/5 of the rows. So 1, 2. Ta-da! Now where's the overlap? How many are shaded green? These guys. These are green. Great. Well, what does that mean? Well, we have 6 total green guys. And our total squares, 7 times 5 is 35 total. So what fraction of the total number of squares are shaded green? Well, that would be 6/35. It's a 5. Is that cool? Well, great. Well, where did I get that from? How did I know how many squares were shaded green? Well, 6, I counted. There's 3 here, and there are 2 here. That's 3 times 2. And then where did I get the 35 from? Where there's 7 total, and there are 5 across. Whoa. Total. And that's 7 times 5. But guys, look, that's our original problem. Our original problem was to find out, okay, what is 3/7 times 2/5? Well, it's 6/35. And you guys, that is the pattern. To multiply fractions, you're going to multiply the numerators up on top, and then you'll multiply the denominators up on bottom. And you'll spell denominators correctly. Denominators. Let's color code this. We'll put pink on top and purple on bottom. Sure. So what that looks like is if we have 2 fractions, a over b times c over d, and we're multiplying them together, we're going to multiply across, and that's how you multiply fractions. A times c on top, and and b times d on bottom. You know, guys, that's kind of hard to read with the highlighters, huh? So I'll just do it this way. A times c over b times d. So when you're multiplying 2 fractions, multiply across. All right, we have another activity to do. Let's find each of these products. So remember, we want to multiply across. So we have one sign that gives us a negative sign. 4 times 1 is 4, and 5 times 3 is 15. How do we multiply this? There's not a fraction. Remember, 6 is the same thing as 6 over 1. 6 times 2 is 12. 1 times 5 is 5. You can leave it like this if you want. I, in fact, like to leave fractions like this, but if you want to have it in compound form, that would be 2 and 2/5. Both are fine. And then finally, oh yikes, look at this guy. We need to first put him in fraction form. So how we do that is we say, okay, this is the same thing as this guy right here. Is the same thing as negative 4 plus 1/2. And we can't just add that 4 right away. We need to say, oh, 4, that's the same thing as, not 4 halves, but that's going to be 8 halves, because we're going to multiply top and bottom by 2 over 2 to get him to have a common denominator. So that's the same thing as 8 halves, because 8 divided by 2 is 4. 8 halves plus 1, plus 1/2. And last time I checked, 8 plus 1 is 9, negative 9 halves. So this is really the same thing as negative 1/4 times negative 9 halves. And now let's multiply across. We have 2 negatives, makes this positive. We have 9 over 4 times 2 is 8. 9/8. Okay, Now, using what we know about our multiplication signs, -1 times 5 is going to be -5. -1 times -2.4, negative times a negative is a positive 2.4. Is that it? Oh, one more. M. I don't know what M is, but that's okay, because 1 times M is just M. Because we have one negative sign, it gives us a negative M. And you guys, we just put into practice something you didn't even know about, and that's called the multiplication property of -1. And what this says is that if the product, so a timesy guy, of -1 and any number, we'll just say like n, is that number's additive inverse, which means adding it to equal 0. So if you have some number n and you add -n to it, that gives you 0. For example, 4 plus -4 equals 0, and -8 plus 8 equals 0, that kind of thing. So in symbols, what this means is if you have -1, that is this guy, -1 times some number n equals -n. Yay! So here we go. Let's simplify each expression by multiplying out. So first, let's look at our sign. How many negatives do we have? Just one. It'll be negative. And then let's multiply our numbers together. 7.2 times 5. Well, we'll have one number behind our decimal. And 2 times 5 is 10. And 5 times 7 is 35, plus 1 is 36. So this is 36. Our numbers are gone. TU. So it's -36 TU. And then finally, our last problem of the day. Oh my! We have 2 fractions and 2 variables. So let's rearrange them. So we have 2/5 times 3/5 times m times n. And remember, with fractions, we're going to multiply across. Multiply our top numbers together, and we multiply our bottom numbers together. So that'll give us 2 times 3 is 6, and 5 times 5 is 25, m times n. You can leave it like this is fine. If you would rather say, oh, that's 6mn all over 25, that's also fine. I like it that way. I think that looks better, but it's up to you which one you pick. Okay. So remember, when you multiply, to keep your signs in mind. To multiply fractions, top and bottom. Oh, we need to make this whole thing yellow. Multiply fractions across, top and bottom. And have a great time on your homework.